Well, fellas, we're back with another episode of the Drivers Project podcast. JJ was supposed to be on, but he couldn't make it, and then we tried to bring in the flame-throwing lefty Carson McCarl, and he had an arm issue, so we've scrounged around, and making his first ever video debut will be Justin Fiedler, who's probably not used to being on camera, but we're hoping he adapts pretty well. Justin, welcome to the pod.
First of all, can we talk about the screen capture that you used of me on the Driver Project Facebook page? Like, what the hell was that, man?
Did you see the one I put up after? I took
Yeah,
four of them. I took
like you
four
could
of
have
them of
asked me
you.
for a photo, man. Like,
No,
come
no,
on.
nope, nope. There was one of you blinking. There was one of you looking like you're about to suck a hot dog. There was, yeah, there was a few beauties in there, and I went for the nicest one.
God, man, like do me a little dirtier next time, you know?
I put my face on camera. You can deal with yours. You at least don't look terrible.
No, I appreciate you guys having me on and looking forward to this.
Dom, what have you been up to for the last week or so, other than a big interview on Dirtrackr?
That was a lot of fun. I had a great time with Justin, and anyone that's in transportation knows that this is the busiest 2 to 3 weeks of the year, and everything seems to be a nightmare with places closed for Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. So it's been a whirlwind of a few weeks. I'll be looking forward to next week when this is all over and we can kind of get ready for the race season and get ready for just things to normalize. It's been a nightmare. I've been pulling my hair out left and right. I just got home here a few minutes ago, so it's been a long day. Tomorrow's going to be a long day, but outside of that, I've been watching a lot of racing in Australia. I've been watching my brother suck, and I don't know. It's been interesting to see. You know, that guys like Callum Williamson have been badass, and guys like Gio Scelzi have been terrible, and guys like Corey Lyson haven't been able to find the scales.
Yee, yee, yee. Sam, I saw a post from the ASCS today, and you're a month away from going racing. What's going on in your world over the last week or so?
Honestly, a lot of family stuff, not a lot of racing stuff. We've been doing a lot of family parties and this and that, and I've been trying to sneak away to the shop to get a little bit of work done. I was a little successful today, but we got two more holidays coming up, so probably not a lot of work going on it for another couple days, and I'll be glad when the holidays are over so we can get back to work.
Yeah, and I believe your wife is like all over every holiday, and you had like what 11 Christmas trees up this year.
Uh, well, they're still up, so I don't know. I could sit around here and talk, but and count them, but it's quite a few.
So we did actually get some sprint car racing. Dear Lord, thank you, Jesus. And James McFadden came up victorious 2 nights in a row and had a pretty nice shot at $100,000. But as it seems like happens every time there's big money on the line and he's there, Kyle Larson killed some dreams. Justin, what were your thoughts on the weekend for High Limited in Australia?
I thought we saw some pretty good racing. The one thing I thought was interesting, and maybe Dom has some insight on this, but Trevor Canales on the wrenches for Larson there. My assumption would have been that he would have been back on Rico's car in Australia like he was last year. So I'm wondering if maybe Rico not racing then opened up Canales to come over and run with Larson. But maybe it took Larson a night or two to kind of figure those guys out, figure the car out. Looked like he was maybe in a good shot to win on that second night before he hit the wall, but not shocking to see Larson come through from sixth and win that race. And he really stretched away from McFadden over those last couple of laps. But impressive still from McFadden. He looked great. Looks like he hasn't lost anything. Those guys with that new team have really, just kind of jumped out and been fast from the jump. But are we really surprised to see Larson go somewhere and win $100,000 sprint car race? Because I certainly wasn't.
Not even kind of. Sam, did you have any takeaways from the weekend?
I mean, I thought, obviously the first few nights, it looked like I don't even know if the guys actually found anything on Larson's car rather than him just being Larson and figuring things out that other guys don't. Like, I felt like the biggest thing he did in that race was in 1 and 2, where he'd enter high and then peel off and try to grab some moisture. I feel like when you give Larson a couple opportunities of pieces of racetrack to work with, he's going to optimize that, and like he does almost every time he races. And I think being at that track for 3 nights, obviously their car had to be pretty good. You can't just stretch 3 seconds on a guy at the end of a race like he did. But I felt like he drove a phenomenal race the last night. Obviously the first 2 nights probably weren't some of his best pieces of work, but the last night I really thought he was really impressive, like he normally is. I really thought McFadden was going to run away. That was what my thought was, and about, I don't know, 20 some odd laps in, you could just tell Larson was being Larson.
Now, Dom, I saw you on Twitter this morning. You were really happy for Kyle's car owner. I don't know much about him. They said he seems to race a lot. Can you tell us about that car owner and what that would mean to him?
Yeah. So Jason Pride was a huge part of the World Series back when I ran it in like 2016, 2017, or 17, 18, whatever year that was. The World Series has had issues, moving up to that point, and Pride kind of, took the initiative and kind of did the groundwork to get the teams interested, get the teams, wanting to do it. He helped with the schedule. He really pushed for the majority of. I mean, he was the biggest factor in the World Series being a thing that year. And if I remember correctly, that might have been the last year of the World Series. So I got to spend a lot of time with Jason down in WA both the years I went down to Australia. He was a great guy. I actually got blackout drunk at his place the night before one of the races, and I'm pretty sure I pissed my pants. And I know I left with one of his helmets. I don't know if he gave it to me or not, but I do have one of his helmets in my collection, and I left a fire suit at his shop. So technically, I won 100 grand. I mean, if you want to, put the pencil and paper, I've been there. It was my fire suit in the shop, so I kind of was a part of Larson's win. Ipso facto. But Pride's a great guy. He's a lot of fun. He's a hardworking guy, and he's great for sprint car racing down there in WA. So it was awesome to see him win. And then to answer your question, oh my gosh, I'm losing his name right now. Uh,
Trevor.
Trevor Canales. I've seen over the last few years, Trevor will go help Kyle and he'll go help Rico, and he kind of just bounces around. He's buddies with both of those guys. I definitely would have imagined he probably went down there for Rico and then maybe had that last minute change, because I saw Zach Middlebrooks, who is Rico's guy. He was actually working on Cole Macito's car for the week.
So, Dom, the one question I had is, I know you talk to your brother all the time. So why did he suck?
Yeah, I don't really know. We've talked every morning. Well, for me, every morning. For him, after the races, and I know that the car. I mean, the car is different. It's Triple X versus a Maxim. They're on CSI shocks versus Canes. I feel like he said they had chalk stick bars. He runs Schroeder's. Different bird cages. There's just some differences, and obviously, all those components work, but I think we go back to like talking about a driver's feel and what a driver likes, and obviously there's something missing there. He keeps saying that he's got no grip, and is really struggling to have stick. And we talked about some options that I felt like helped me there at the end of the year, and um, I don't know what all they tried after that last night. So he did say he had contact on the last night, like 6 laps into the feature. So not sure if maybe that contributed to his suckage or not. But man, he's definitely winning the soft charger every night. That's no good.
God damn. So
I've never heard it called the soft charger. I kind of like that. I might use that.
I've heard it called the dump truck award, but I haven't heard soft charger. Blake Cook used to give out $100 award to the person that soft charged its gadget every weekend. So the other thing that happened at the high limit race, Sam, I know this has happened to you and I before, is Corey Eliason missed the scales. I think whenever fans hear about that happening, they think the driver's an idiot. Is that an easy thing to do, or what was your takeaway on that happening?
Well, I mean, in his situation, I mean, he was pretty much right. Like, how often do you get interviewed after a B main and then asked to go to the skills? Like, it's just not a normal situation. I mean, he still fucked up. He still didn't go. I don't know, like people buy into it too much and make too big of a deal about it. Like he's kicking himself. It's bad for him, bad for the team. Um, I don't know. I thought it was too big of a headline. Like it's a shitty deal for him, and then I think you just kind of go on with it, you know.
Can I ask a question here?
Yes, fire
So
away.
s so Sam, this is, I guess, a good question for you is, like, how much, like, responsibility do the officials have here? Like, why aren't they, like, saying, like, "Hey, when you get done with your interview, make sure you go to the scales," or why is there not somebody, like, waving these guys? It's like, this is such a stupid thing to have happen. Like, it seems to me like there should be some backup things, the race director in your ear reminding you. I don't know, like, this is a dumb thing to me. I don't know why this happens, and I don't know why the officials don't help more.
Well, the shitty part is if you really knew how many guys are even close to being light, it would blow you away. There's like a handful, like out of the whole country or out of Australia and America. So the reason that we're even going to the scales is kind of dumb anymore, to be honest. But I mean, it is the driver's responsibility. Like I know any series, and I've run with a lot of them. Any series that we race with, most of the time they tell you, okay, in the heat race we're taking a winner, or we're taking the winner of the B and the top three, top five A. They go over that. Now, usually when the race is over, they come on the radio and tell you, hey, okay, you know, however many to the scales. It's almost every series in the country does it that way. And I'm imagining that they did because from everything I've heard about Australia is they don't fuck around. Like everything is serious. I mean, you could tell by everything there that they have going on. You know, they don't joke around with anything. Safety's pretty big to them. I think I don't know. Like he just fucked up. I mean, it's simple. I mean, uh, I obviously he knew to go to the scales. He didn't go. Probably got confused with the interview. And honestly, Corey's a pretty hands on guy, so I think probably after the interview he was getting in his mind probably thinking, man, get back to the trailer. What do we got to do for the A to get better? Probably just fucked him up. I think.
So I want to add, he actually lost the rear end. So to add on top of it all, like
Oh
me,
wow.
I don't give a shit. I'm an asshole. I'd be like, dude, guys, I blew a rear end. I'm out of here. I'm going to the back to the trailer, and I probably would have drove right by the scales as well. But I saw some stuff on Facebook, and you know me, I just can't keep my mouth shut. Someone's like, how could a professional race car driver let this happen? And I'm like, in all my years of racing, the only B main scales I've ever driven over was the Australian Sprint Car Classic. I ran second to Corey in the B main, and they scaled the top four, and the Knoxville Nationals. Those are the only two races of anything I've ever run that you actually scale the B main guys. And for heat races, I can think of Trophy Cup, the winner of the heat race at the Kings Royal, and the top four at the Knoxville Nationals. Other than that, I don't scale. I don't see any scales for heat races as well. So besides qualifying, the normal everyday race car driver is going, yep, all right, we're in the show. Let's get our shit ready to go. I got to throw tear offs on. We got to get fuel. This rear end's going. We got to, so like mindset wise, it's not even remotely going close. And I agree with you, Justin. I feel like a guy should be at the scales waving him in, for something like that. And, I've raced at Perth enough to know that, you drive right past the scales. I'm kind of amazed nobody was out there waving at him. At the end of the day, it's Corey's fault, and he was the one who dropped the ball. But I just, I feel bad for him because it's just a dumb thing. Like, why are we scaling after the B main? And he's already scaled after qualifying. You scaled your guys. I don't know. I just think it's a waste of time. It's redundant, but you get a lot of that kind of stuff going on in Australia.
Yeah, I can actually tell you guys a disaster. Sam knows I went through this one. Is at the Canadian Nationals. Parker and I had broken our heat, so we started last in our B main. And on the last corner, the last lap of the B main, we transferred into the A main. And as we were going down the straightaway, our right rear tire blew, and we absolutely destroyed our race car, killed the frame, and they still made us scale. I was like, I was blown away. Like all the fluids you'd have lost, all the shit you destroyed. Like, do the tires even line up? And yeah, we still had to scale in Canada here when we, even when we destroyed a car for a B main. So all this tech talk leads into the thing that I've gotten about I've probably had 20 people ask me to talk about this. If I've had 20, that means Justin's had about 8,000 people ask him. Is everybody is talking about these tweets from Kevin Nause. I don't even think I have to explain them. I think people know them. He accused them of letting guys away with cars that didn't make it through technically. I don't know who wants to talk about this first. I haven't heard from you in a while, Justin. So, what are your thoughts? First of all, I was watching this like internet show today, and this weirdo gave some thoughts, but I didn't know if there was anything else you wanted to add.
I don't I felt like today I really tried to stay kind of in the middle and toe the line on the situation. Like, I've had conversations with Kevin in the past. Obviously, I worked with Mike Hess for a long time when I worked at World Racing Group, so, like, I know everybody involved here. Um, I don't understand the timing of Nouse's comments. I don't understand why he is replying to tweets from a burner account. It just seemed like a really weird moment to do it, and it's like and I said this on my show today. It may all be true, but like when you throw all of the kind of circumstances of the situation in, the timing, what he was doing, when he did it, like all of these things, and the fact that he was fired by the series, it just clouds all of it. And so like even if it is true, now there's all these questions around it. It's like, can we really believe it? I don't know. Like it's a weird situation to me. It's a weird time to bring it up. I certainly hope that he's wrong because you don't want to believe that, a series like High Limit is doing these types of things. And if it is, maybe things were misunderstood or I don't know, but like we want things to be officiated properly. And I said this on my show today. I'm so sick of these conversations about officiating. Like I hate it in basketball, I hate it in the NFL. Like let's just play the games and let those things handle themselves. And like if you notice in dirt racing, whenever this stuff comes up, when Bobby Pierce and Deb Moran and Kyle Bronson get popped for tires, all of a sudden it's like, oh, it's the lab's fault, right? Like these guys weren't, that's the issue, right? Or it's, like we talk about guys missing the scales. It's like, oh, he didn't miss the scales. Like he was paid off to do it. It's like there's always a reason why the officials are wrong and the drivers are right. And it just, that stuff just drives me insane. And I don't, I wish we weren't talking about these things. Like I wish we could talk about racing and driver changes and things like that. But I don't, it just, the whole thing bothers me and I don't like any of it all the way around.
Yeah, so I don't think it ends there either. I'm sure we all saw Danny Dietrich's tweets about an inch and a quarter. Um, what's it called? Wicker
Wicker
Bill.
Bill.
Wicker.
Scotty Martin talking about traction control and ignition boxes not being up to snuff. That's been going on for a long time. So there was a lot of blame and a lot of really interesting things thrown out on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it. But there was a lot of stuff from a lot of credible people. A guy like Danny Dietrich has been around a long time and he knows what's what. And you know that has me concerned when I hear stuff like that. When I hear stuff like that from Scotty Martin, it has me concerned. But I've done a little bit of digging because we've talked a lot about tire dope and Blue Ridge and stuff like that. And there's a couple non-wing guys that I've talked to in depth about this stuff, and the consensus that I got was everybody was doping tires for Chili Bowl, until they came out with that rule, and it wasn't that big of a deal to dope tires for Chili Bowl because a lot of these guys were doping tires all year long. And a lot of them kind of thought, hey, you know what, we're not going to get caught. We're not going to worry about it. I've heard stories from very credible people saying that they've had their tires tested, they were doped, and they passed. I've heard guys say they've had their tires tested, they were not doped, and they failed. So there is some gray area with all of it. Quite honestly, I feel like it's such a conspiracy at this point with everything that you almost need to have an outside source managing tech, which something that I think Australia does incredibly well is they have a national board of directors for the Sprint Car Council, and this board is actually the one controlling ruling and controlling suspensions and stuff like that. Which I almost wonder if that would be a help here in the United States, where there's an outside source making the rules that all the series need to, conform to, and then they do the testing and they decide what's actually illegal and legal.
Sam, do you have anything to add to that? I think I've already warned you. I have some stuff to say.
Yeah, I don't. I mean, the whole situation. Like, do I believe there's cheating going on? Hell yeah. I mean, we've been racing for years. I mean, people do it. Do I think there's traction control out there? Yeah, I do. Like the company obviously is in business, so somebody's buying it. I mean, is it all sprint car guys, all major ones? No, not all. I mean, do some teams run it? I'm sure they do. As far as tire doping, I mean, I think we've been doing the right things as a sprint car community to do a lot more testing than I've ever seen in my entire career. We're doing more testing than I've ever seen have entire samples. So, I mean, I've had more tire tests in the last year than I've had my whole career. So, I think we're trending in the right direction, but I mean, the now still, I agree with Justin. Like, okay, so why all of a sudden are we pumping it now? Now, I know he did release stuff earlier this year. I don't know how many months ago. Daryl, you might be better at knowing that than me.
I couldn't tell you. He said this on Twitter before, and it just didn't catch on.
Yeah, nobody really said anything about it before, which I thought was really weird. And then this time is like, I guess it takes a guy like Danny Dietrich to make a little buzz, and then it took off. And I've also read, I don't know if you guys read some more stuff. Like, I guess Nause had a statement. I don't know if did y'all read any of that?
That was when he quit.
No, he released something here just recently.
I have not seen a recent one.
Let me pull it up here because I want to read it just to kind of. So basically, he was dismissed June 17th. And he basically came back and said, it's not my intention to damage anything concerning sprint car racing. I have nothing against High Limit, the World of Outlaws, or anyone else. Sprint car racing is thriving. It's awesome to see. However, enforcing the rules and having integrity needs to be just as important as any other thing they do. Don't bring it back to quit looking for that or just let it go. Shouldn't be in a series director or tech director's vocabulary. That's what he wrote, basically. So, and then he goes on his passion for the sport and all this stuff. But he's saying no ill intention, but why would you write what you wrote on Twitter then? You know what I'm saying? Like, that's the stupidest place to put it. But that's my 2 cents. I mean, do I think he's right about some things? Yeah, I do. Now, in certain instances, were those guys illegal? You know what? There's part of me that doesn't doubt it to some degree. But I don't know. Like, if you weren't heard back then, I don't know how you're going to be heard now and what difference it would make to come out in December, the end of December, to say something now. Like, why didn't we put this out in June 18th? When the day after you got fired, to air out the dirty laundry. I don't know. Like, it honestly isn't even a good look for him. Like, okay, so say 5 people believe Nause or 25,000 people believe him. What's it going to change? It's not going to change shit. Like, and the best thing High Limit can do is just not say anything. Maybe make a little make light of the subject and go on with it. I think that's what they would do, and that's what they are doing.
Got this notification right now. Kevin Nause, head official for High Limit, has gone missing.
Oh, shit. Damn it.
So, yeah, I don't know what's going on.
Hopefully someone finds him.
Seems political.
So, what I don't think people understand is whenever, and Justin kind of alluded to it, whenever these things happen, people make it out like it's this evil series official out to get us. And I don't think people really understand the mechanisms or like what's really going on. I'm going to give an example Sam and I went through. I'm not going to say the driver, track or series. Sam time trialed at a race. And I'll say right now, it wasn't ASCS. Sam time trialed at a race, and the car in front of him was light at the scales after time trials. And Sam pulls up, and this guy still hasn't gone over the scales. And Sam's looking at me like, what the hell's going on? And I said to Sam, like, he's screwed. And the reason he was screwed is the guy was 13 pounds underweight. And they rolled him back on 2 more times. and he was still found underweight. Like at no point was he less than 13 pounds underweight, and the series official waved him through. Now, that drives us all nuts. Like, I think we all agree that should be an automatic DQ. You should be done for the night. But you've got to see it from the way the series official sees it. This driver was a major driver. He was an important driver for a very important team. And if they DQ him there, his night's over and his night's wrecked. And there's a bunch of ramifications for that. So, what's the easier thing to do? The easier thing to do is just look at it and say, you're good. And then you save everyone drama. We all know that that 13 pounds isn't making a difference. And everybody goes on with life and no one gets screwed and they know, oh shit, they've got to get their shit together. And I think on almost every single case where we can think of where someone got away with cheating, it was literally the official going, oh crap, I don't want to ruin this loyal follower's like year by knocking him out of a race for something trivial. Like Dom, Sam, how much does a quarter-inch difference make on a wick?
Not a whole hell of a lot.
I don't even think you'd notice.
But we all agree it's illegal, so you're technically illegal. But they're sitting there thinking like, oh man, we might lose a driver over this. And we're in a time of a split, and they can't afford to lose drivers. Look at the World of Outlaw late models split with Lucas Oil. Every time one of the series comes down on a guy, they can't go to the other series fast enough. And I don't think there's the evil intention. I feel like it's this is a really small infraction. We don't want to ruin this guy's season. We don't want to ruin this guy's night over something really small. They might not even done it deliberately. Let's let it go. And I think that's totally understandable, and I think that happens way more than people think. But as I've said to you guys pre-show, there's the unintended consequence, which is by taking care of that one guy, you've screwed the rest of the field. Like that night, the guy who got in on the scales, he made the invert for the race he was in. Someone else, by rules, should have been in that invert. And so I just think in those situations, I think it's really easy to be the official and let the guy go. And I think they'd really save their ass if they make the hard decision that benefits the field rather than that one guy. Like no matter what, if people find out, they're going to be pissed. So you might as well have one guy pissed at you rather than 23. And I wish officials would kind of keep that in mind. But I don't know. Does anyone have anything to add? And I think we all think I think we're all fed up with it.
If you're cheating at this day and age, whether it be tire dope, whether it be wide left rear wheels, whether it be wicker bills, traction control, whatever it may be, you will not see someone go from a mid packer to winning national races. If someone is cheating, it's the guy that's really good already and getting a little bit better, or someone that's very average that's just getting a little bit better than average. The cars and the drivers and the teams are so good nowadays that even if you have that little advantage, it's not going to take you from a mid packer to now being the guy to beat in any circumstance in any series.
Okay, so Justin said he wanted to talk about people changing rides and stuff like that. He says that's way more fun to talk about. Well, the first bit of news we got in was that Brent Marks has made a decision, and Brent Marks is going back to High Limit. Justin, what are your thoughts on that?
I think it's a good move. I think he is, one of those guys that has an opportunity to win a championship. Like, and I said that before this year, right? Like if those guys could find just a little bit more consistency, they would be right in the mix and good crew chief with Heath, experienced guy. Brent is, as talented as they come, can win any single night out. You've seen him win big money and lead the earnings list. I think he definitely adds something to the High Limit roster. I definitely think it was important for High Limit to bring him back to keep that roster deep. So not surprised. I thought maybe there was a small chance that he would stick around Central Pennsylvania this year, but we've had this conversation, I feel like, in a few different places, and I've had it with a few different people. But if you are going to go pick and choose this day and age at the 410 level, you have got to win races. If you do not win races, there's just not enough money out there, I think. And when you join up with the series, you're guaranteeing yourself tow money, you're guaranteeing yourself, the point fund and some of the added benefits and things like that. I think that stuff is really, really important for some of these teams. And I think that's true of Marks. And he won a few races this year, didn't win as much as we usually see him win. But I think those added benefits are a big deal for those guys. And I know he's not a guy that's going to want to go to California twice. California is not Brent Marks territory, but even so, I think there's a lot of benefits for a guy like him to stick around there, and I think it's good for the series to have him back.
Sam, we don't know what they're doing yet with the charters. Do you think in any way this is a bit of a gamble, or do you think this was a pretty easy decision?
I think it was a hard decision for him, to be honest. I think, for a lot of guys, most people would have thought that he's going to stay out in PA. I definitely thought that. I was honestly counting on him staying out there. But for him to do this, I do too. Like if you can travel with the national tour and get the benefits of doing that, I think it is the thing to do. Obviously, these guys know more about the charter than any of us do. Um, what it consists of, what it actually entails, I have no clue. But I don't even think it's about the charter totally. I know that High Limit would probably think that in my situation, they're going to need some guys. And if they lose a handful of these guys, well, then what do they have? Uh, the star that they had, like with Corey Day, like him leaving the scene, that's a hard place to feel, so I think I think if you lose another couple of your top five guys, or at least one of them, you're in bad shape. So I wouldn't be surprised if they gave him a little more incentive, maybe said, "Hey, man, come back. We'll do this, do that." Like I feel like they have the power to do that, and especially at this time, they're still getting off the ground. I think they're going to do what it takes to get the right guys out there, and maybe that's something they did with Brent. Who knows?
Dom, you've spent your last couple of years much like Sam, splitting your time between 360s, 410s, not really following a series. Could you speak to what Justin said in terms of like how much do you have to win as a non-series regular to make it financially make sense? Because I know you actually follow the finances of your team pretty hard and do try to make it make sense when you can.
Yeah, so for us, when we were on the road, the last, I would say, 2 years, we got progressively better through 18 and 19, and then 2020 was an odd year, so we kind of ran weird races and stuff like that, so it was a little different. But I can tell you, when we got off the road, we were getting tow money at the majority of the races we were going to, with the World of Outlaws, and um, that helped tremendously. But when we got home and started winning a bunch of races and running top three every night, and then winning the bigger races at home, we actually made a lot more money. So I understand why even a guy like Brent Marks may look at it and go, "Is it still worth it? Yeah, we're fourth in points. Yeah, we have tow money. Yeah, we got point money, but how many more thousands of dollars could we have made by staying at home?" Which kind of brings me to the question I have about it: is how much wheeling and dealing do you think that both of these series are doing behind the scenes on top of what's public knowledge? Are they offering, "Hey, listen, we're going to offer you a $5,000 bonus every month for you guys to stay on, and that's going to be just between us girls"? Hey, is it going to be a $50,000 sponsorship, or what else are these series doing to maintain their good guys? Because quite honestly, someone might say that's oh, that's shitty or bad or whatever, but that's good business. If you're a series and you have the sponsorship or the ability to entice drivers more, especially certain drivers, like a guy like Rico. If Rico was thinking about splitting, Brad Sweet and Kyle Larson would be idiots if they didn't say, "Let's work something under the table to make it worth your while to stay." I just think that that's a good business practice as a total. But how much of that do we think is going on? And then my other question is, with all this stuff shaking out, I think both series are now pretty even with the 10 guys that both are committed to both series. But what happens with Brad Sweet now? This is year number two on running a series, and now he's got Ty Wolfgang, who's a first time crew chief, and Eric Crispin's with Casey Kane. Do we see this shakeup where a Brent Marks or a Tyler Courtney or a Rico Abreu wins a national championship that maybe we didn't see coming until now?
Well, my first thing I'm going to do is whenever I want to know stuff I don't know, I'm going to ask Justin. Justin, are you hearing anything of side deals being made?
Yeah, absolutely. I've heard stories of West Coast trips being made a little bit easier with a little bit of added money and you know deals being done for certain drivers. That's absolutely been talked about, and I guess that's a question back for Dom and Sam, right? Is it's like, Sam, and I know this might be a weird way to phrase this, but like, on the ASCS, if Bergman's getting more money because they've decided Bergman is a draw, does that piss you off? Or are you like, no, it's good that Bergman's around and he's a champion and he's putting more butts on the seat, so it's okay with me. Like, where do you stand on that?
I mean, I don't know. Like it in our situation, obviously, we're ASC is a small scale, so it's not. They're not. I don't think they're giving anybody shit, to be honest with you. But at the World of Outlaw level and the high limit level, I mean, I think the Outlaws would be less apt to give money out. And to answer your question, honestly, like it would piss me off because I feel like I'm their best draw. So like, why am I not getting paid? You know what I'm saying? In that certain situation, but I feel like with the Outlaws and High Limit, I feel like the Outlaws are probably not going to give out as much as what I think High Limit would do right now because I feel like High Limit thinks if they can make this happen and do whatever it takes, and they've still got the Flow money behind them. I don't know. I don't know when that runs out or when Flow, decides that they're done with this adventure or whatever the case. But I feel like they would be the guys that are, the because like look at the roster they had last year. Like it was pretty fucking nice. Like that roster. That's why everybody like. And I said this before. That's why we were all watching. At the end of the year, like I know I was watching High Limit, and I wasn't a big advocate for High Limit at the beginning of the year, but when I turn on an Outlaw show and I see, I don't even know, Bill Rose start running, his car start running in the top 10, and I start thinking, man, well, let's look at the rest of the field, and the rest of the field doesn't look so hot, and nothing against Bill Rose's car, but my point is, if you go watch a High Limit show, the guy in 17th is a stud. So that's what they had. Like, and I feel like maybe they didn't do that last year as much, but I think coming into this year, to keep the roster nice, I think they would be more apt to throw a little change out there for guys and do the right things. And the good thing is, I think they had enough people buy in the first year where it got them off the ground in a nice situation. And I think after the first year, a lot of these guys probably stepped back and thought, like, honestly, I think Brent Marks played them. If like, why did you wait so long to commit to go back? And why did you not announce at the end of the year, like, hey man, like he didn't announce. So my thoughts is, and I think he was smart, like waited as long as he did. And I think a guy like Brad Sweet and Kyle Larson, they don't want to wait that long to know. We're past PRI and guys don't even know where they're going. Like that doesn't make sense. Like usually by that time, guys are already committed. So I think I do think some deals were done with some guys, and honestly, Marks deserves it. He's the kind of guy that they need. He's super fast. I mean, to lose a guy like him would be detrimental. Like if I was him, I'd be going after Macri too, because that'd be another hell of a guy to pick up.
Okay, so then if you think he's playing games, is Danny Sam's the third playing games right now?
I honestly don't even know what the hell he's doing. I couldn't tell you.
He has told his fans he is going either High Limit or World of Outlaws, but I think for a week and a half to 2 weeks now, he has not made a decision and has basically been quiet on it after saying he's definitely doing one or the other. So my question is he playing them off each other?
He could try to play him off, but honestly, I don't. He's not a he's not a big enough name for them guys to say, oh man, I'm going to throw some money to you. Like he's had a better year this year, but like he's not even close to Bill Baylog's level, and I don't think they're fighting over Bill Baylog. And Baylog's a good, a good decent name to have. So I don't know, like him. If you think he's playing games, I think that's just stupid because he's not. He's not a draw.
He's not Brent Marks. He doesn't have that kind of
No,
leverage.
Okay, so then why is he doing it?
just to get some clicks, Daryl.
Okay, fair enough. That's a good enough answer for me. Uh, my next thing I would add though is I kind of assumed Justin was going to give us the answer he did because when Sam actually went out on the tour in '07 and '08, that was right off the split between the NST and the Outlaws. And so we were racing with a lot of these guys that had been part of choosing the Outlaws. And you'd be surprised the names that were getting pretty heavy chunks of change to follow that series. Like, all you have to do is look at the World of Outlaw lineup then and go, do I think this guy could have financially done the World of Outlaw tour? And if your answer is no, he probably got a really decent chunk of change to follow the Outlaws that year. So I wouldn't be surprised if they're fighting over middle tier names like Danny Sams. I wouldn't be surprised at all. And we've all kind of alluded to it, but I don't know if you've lined up the top 7 Outlaws versus the top 7 high limit guys, but the Outlaw guys are winning that one right now, I think, pretty easily.
Yeah, but I think the Outlaws, what they are doing is they're taking care of their core guys. I would say that 100%. I would almost guarantee that because they don't want to lose that. Like they ain't going to let Donnie Schatz go. I can promise you that. Can't lose that name. Like I just don't think they're going to let those guys go. I really don't think so. Now, the rest of the guys, I don't think they really care a lot. I think it's like we talked before, like when you have all these badass cars, you got 7, well then there's a bunch more spots available. Well, guys are going to fill those spots, and they're going to be decent guys that fill them. So I think the Outlaws played that card this year or this last year, but coming into this year, maybe the Outlaws are going to maybe push a little harder and maybe throw a little coin out there.
You were going to add something there, Justin?
Yeah, I think one of the things too that like fans and things like that don't understand is I think the Outlaws too have formalized a lot of that added money where, you've got the exclusivity bonus now, which is like on top of the normal point fund, but like there's also other benefits that the Outlaw teams get that are spelled out, that are like official things that are not side deals and, text messages on the side. Like, the Outlaw teams can participate in like social media bonuses, right? Like they're helping them sling tickets, they're helping them sling the Outlaw game. And when they post things and get engagement on those posts, they're getting paid for that. Like that, those are things that are actually happening that are part of the platinum agreements, things like that. So, I think they're trying to find ways to say, okay, well, we're going to give you more money, but we want a little bit of something in return. And so, like, if you notice, like a lot of the social media graphics selling tickets and selling World of Outlaws games and pushing things, like all of those things look the same, and it's because they're coming out of one office. It's not because those teams are doing that stuff on their own. So, I think that's one thing the Outlaws have done well is they're like, okay, well, we're gonna help provide you some more of that money. We're gonna give you a more of a taste, but we're gonna get something back in return for it. We're gonna formalize some of those things, and I would assume in the future you'll probably see High Limit do some of those other things as well, just as they get more mature and kind of figure those things out. But that stuff is actually just official parts of being a World of Outlaws team.
Yeah, that's a thing Brian Carter did that I think is really underrated. When Brian Carter got the Outlaws, there was no value to them. Like there was no value to the name. It was okay, what am I getting if I buy the World of Outlaws? And the formalization process was the process of him getting value to the Outlaw name by signing up the Mean 15. When you're buying the Outlaws, you're buying these 15 guys. Where before he had the Mean 15, if you were buying the Outlaws, Steve Kinzer could go run somewhere else. I think that's a really underrated thing that Brian Carter did in terms of giving the Outlaws value. And now it's just paying off in this sense, in that they have some very formal bonuses for the drivers. But I think that's something really underestimated that he did. So the next one, I thought there was a driver split, and then right away the team announced that they were bringing in 2 drivers, and I thought this would be a lot bigger news than it seemed to be on our page. Uh, Logan Wagner and Donnie Kreitz, they parted ways, and now Ryan Smith and Darren Pittman were originally announced as going to split time in the 69K. Well, now it's come out that Christopher Bell's actually going to get some races in the 69K, and he's going to start as soon as Volusia. Dom, what are your thoughts on that matchup? Because I think that's not being talked about enough. When I think back to like how fast the Kreitz car was in time trials at Knoxville, and now they're going to Volusia with Bell.
Well, I can tell you right now, I would be doing whatever it took to get into the 69K if I was a driver right now. I felt like Logan Wagner did a pretty good job regionally in it, but what Darren Pittman did in the 69K this year was just ridiculous. I mean, truly one of the fastest cars outside of Pennsylvania that we saw anywhere and everywhere they went. I mean, Knoxville, they were a contender. Um, TMS, they were, I felt like one of the top 3 fastest cars both nights. Um, everywhere that car really went, it was a contender. It was good at all the big races. It time trialed well. So the idea that it's just an old shitbox motor that throttles well, I guess you have to throw that out. Putting a guy like Christopher Bell in that thing is going to be lethal. But the Ryan Smith thing, there's a lot of mixed reviews on that because Ryan has been less than, stellar and hasn't really been a whole lot to talk about over the last few years in Pennsylvania. But a lot of people don't remember that 94 car he was in for a little while was a sister car to the 69K. And he won an outlaw race. He won an all-star race or 2 in that car. He was very successful. We go back to feel. If he can jump in that car and get that replicated feel that he's been looking for, he's proven he's fast enough to win races at a high level. He just hasn't in a while. So maybe we could see a resurgence on Ryan Smith. Maybe we don't. But if I'm Ryan Smith, I'm feeling like, hey, I really got to do something this year if I want to, continue on as a top driver of the East Coast.
Sam, I think you feel pretty strongly when someone gets in a car and looks like Pittman did, that people don't realize all the time how much that's car. Like, as incredible as Pittman performed, I think you feel like that is way more car than fans realize. Do you think that's going to benefit Bell and cover up for a lot of the time he's had outside of the car?
Yeah, for sure. We've already seen Bell come back in the midget, and obviously he didn't win the 55 race, but you could tell he had some rust. But I think he'll adapt pretty quick, and I don't know, like Pittman, like when I remember when Pittman first got in that car at the Grove, and then Pittman had been off for a long time at that time. And the Grove isn't a place where you've been off for a long time and you just show up and do good. So I remember him saying, he goes, man, it's just phenomenal how hard that car drives off the corner. And I remember when he came in, just conversing with his crew and just talking about it. And I was like, because I wanted to hear what, okay, this guy hasn't drove a car in however long, you know, tires have changed, a few things have changed. Like, I want to hear what he has to say about this car. Like, and he was blown away by it. And I know the hunk of shit race cars we drive now with these tires that we've got. Like, I'm never blown away with my car when I come in at all anymore. Like, Dom could probably tell you the same thing. Like, it's not like, oh man, the car was badass tonight. It's never like that. And then Pittman gets out of that car and it's like, man, that's crazy. Like, I could do anything I wanted, and that's him being out for a long time. Not to say Pittman's not good by any stretch of the imagination. Pittman's one of the best to ever drive a sprint car. He's won an outlaw championship. A lot of guys haven't done that. And what does he want? 80 something outlaw shows. So, a guy of his caliber, I don't want to sell him short, but that 69K car is pretty damn good. Like, you had a guy like DeWeese, who's aged, still going out there and still competing, but I mean, I think if you put an elite guy in the years that the 69K, because the 69K was probably better a couple years ago. I think it was more dominant race car. They're just traveling a little more now. So, but like I want to say at Port Royal, they were blowing people away at that time a couple years back. They're not blowing people away at Port Royal anymore. They're still, they're still capable of winning. But I just think that, yeah, the car is damn good. There's no doubt about it. Getting a guy like Pittman in there um, with, like outlaw experience, a guy that, like DeWeese was just running, he was running his DeWeese the way DeWeese runs. He's running middle bottom. That's what you're going to get out of DeWeese. You put a guy like Pittman in it, he's going to do a little more. And then I think you put a guy like Bell in it, who knows? Maybe he goes evolution, he waxes everybody's ass all 4 nights. I don't know. I mean, it's like, think about putting Larson in the car. I mean, he already dominates people on nights where his car's probably not handling the best. You put Larson in that car, instead of putting 3 seconds on McFadden at the end of the race, he puts a half a lap on him, maybe. I just don't know. So I don't know. I'd be curious to see how good Bell does in it. I think, yeah, there's no doubt the car's phenomenal, and car matters a lot. Like, okay, Gio Scelzi ran like shit in Australia. Well, did Gio Scelzi all of a sudden just start sucking as a race car driver? Probably not. So I don't know. Brock Zierfoss looked really good. And if you ask JJ thinks he sucks. And then he actually looked pretty good at the last night at Perth. So, like I say, car is a lot in this business. I think I always say this all the time. There's about 40 guys out there that are damn good that could get it done on any night. And if they have a really, really good race car, those nights give them a better opportunity. That's for sure.
Justin, what are your thoughts on Bell going to the 69 and Pittman and Smith? And what do you think will be a successful weekend for Bell when he goes to run the car evolution?
Like the Smith thing, a little bit is curious just because we haven't seen we haven't seen much from him here recently. I would say that I would, default to Donnie Kreitz's judgment on that, because Donnie Kreitz has, forgotten more things about sprint car racing than I will ever know. So, while it doesn't seem like it's, a home run, pick for that, I guess we'll see. Hey, for Teep showing the money sign there.
I don't think
Um,
there's any money there. And I'll
Well,
go
that's
into this.
wild. That's wild to me.
I'll go into this. Keep going, Justin.
Pittman is, you saw what he's capable of. Williams Grove is a place you just show up to, and you're just fast there. Like that's definitely Pittman, and like Hafertepe talked about the car. The thing that I'm more curious about here, and I want to ask Dom this, is Volusia actually the perfect place for Bell to go and get the first race in? And I wonder because you've got a car like the 69K that we've seen go fast at Knoxville. So, they've got a good half mile setup. Are the drivers doing a lot at Volusia to make those cars fast? Is this going to be just a good place for Bell to go to just get comfortable again? And I know that might be crazy to say because Volusia is so fast. But is that like the perfect opportunity for Bell to get back in the seat and be in a good car and have an opportunity to go fast?
I couldn't agree more. I think, a guy like Christopher Bell, who's been out of the seat for so long, a lot of guys say, oh man, a big track's so hard because you got to be smooth and it's so fast. But really, I think it's easier because you can go in there and having a good race car, like look at the 41 around there. I mean, the 41 is phenomenal around there because it's got good speed, it's got good balance, and so does the 69K. So to me, I think that this is a perfect calculated decision for the 69K to go with Chris and kind of unload together and get used to each other. But it's a place the 69 is going to run well, I think, and it's a place that Christopher's done well and been fast at as well. But he's also now going to be comfortable to jump back in the sprint car world and kind of focus on running a handful of races. So I think it's perfect. I think they're going to be deadly. I would not be surprised at all if they don't win a race or two. So I think it's a no-brainer for both of them to start off there.
Do you have anything to add to that, Sam?
No, I agree 100%. I think it's I will say their motors aren't as bad as everybody thinks they are. Like they were a couple years back, but they're a lot better now. I think Tommy Ryder's kind of got. I mean, I don't think it's. I'm not telling you Tommy Ryder's putting their best piece in the car. Like I think they still have some things they do for traction. As far as maybe not. Maybe they don't have a 930, 940 horse bullet under there, but they have things they do for different style injection than what Tommy runs. Maybe a little different cam package that they run that allows them to get it down in the racetrack. Because these days that's probably what we fight the most, and I think it's something they have hit on that works really well for them, and I think that's part of their package as well.
I will say one thing. I really believe that of all the sprint cars in the world, the 69K is the most oddly looking race car. If you were to have every car look just all white or all black or whatever, to where you couldn't see the stickers or the numbers or anything like that, and you just looked at how the race car sat, the 69K looks different than any other race car. And I have looked at videos and pictures and all kinds of stuff. The way that car sits in the pit area is very unique with just how the front end looks and how the rear end is sitting in the race car. And it looks very, very unique. So I'm not surprised with them being as fast as they are that, it gets a lot of talk.
Wasn't it a thing a few years ago that the top wing on the 69K got a bunch of attention with the way that right side sideboard sits so low? Like it's almost like flush with the wing top. If I remember correctly, everybody was like, "Oh, is that like why they're fast?" And then it was like a topic of conversation for a few weeks, and then it kind of seemed to go away after that.
Well, what got everyone about that is it was counterintuitive to what everyone knows. Like it ran a lot of left side lead, which I don't think casual fans would realize, which makes the car in theory more free. And then the lowered right side sideboard allows a lot more wind and air to get on the left side sideboard, and in theory should make that more free. So it was kind of counterintuitive. That's, I think, to people, like, it made you instantly have to ask the question, well, why are they trying to free the car up with the wing? Because nobody else is. And then you start going down a hole. Well, they so stuck that they have to find a way to free the car up. And I mean, Sam could probably give you a great answer on, like,
Well, I mean, you see a lot of people have copied it now. I mean, or tried to copy it. A lot of guys are running the right side board a little lower, or they went in a trend there for a while. Um, like it's everybody will try to emulate or try to copy what these guys are doing, and I don't know. Like I think at some point, guys are like, man, we can't figure out what the hell they're doing. We'll just go back to doing our deal. And usually that's what happens. Like you'll see these guys go on a trend for a while. Oh, we're gonna try to run a wing like they run, and they have so much more going on than just that wing. And that might actually be taking your eyes off of something else that they're doing. But I think I think you'll see some people try to copy some of the stuff that they do, and then probably get right back off of it. I don't think it's not a lot of people will have the mind and the knowledge to uh, to even put their mind around what those guys are doing. So that's kind of why they're in their own zip code, and kudos to them.
and yeah, this is something where I actually think our podcast is very lucky. Sam had Rick Ferkel as a mentor, and Dom has Jimmy Carr right now. And my takeaway when I watch crew chiefs of today versus crew chiefs of like Jimmy Carr and Ferkel's generation, I think you guys would agree with me on this, is there was a lot more understanding of what every little stinking piece on the card does. Like, we could ask Rick some crazy setup or some crazy thing to try on the car, and Rick could always already tell us in advance, well, it's going to do this, this, and this, and then you're going to be fighting this, this, and this, and you should use it at this track, but not this track. And they really knew like every single piece on the car. And I think the elite crew chiefs today do, but I don't think the average crew chief really understands it as much. I don't know. Is that something that's fair to say, Dom and Sam? Like, am I speaking out of line there?
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. And I want to add, like, there's different theories, right? Like all of us here have heard the racetrack gets slick, you got to put soft bars in. All of us have also heard the racetrack gets slick, you got to put stiff bars in. There's two different theories with every single thing you do with a race car, and just like the Kreitz wing. I know the wings that I'm on right now are different than the wings I was on 3, 4 years ago. But with that, there comes reason. And I know that, guys that play with the board placement and all that stuff, that they might be looking for something and find something else. And, the truth a lot of times I think comes with your program. I know there's guys that run the left side board forward and they swear that it helps the car enter the corner. And then I hear guys that they run the left side board in the standard spot or maybe a little bit back because they say they can't enter the corner with the board forward and it drops the left side too much. So it's a whole program thing, and I think the good guys know every step of what they do. There's an action and a reaction, and they're working with everything. And it's just like baking a cake. You can't bake a cake with just sugar. You got to have the eggs, you got to have the flour, you got to have the whole thing to emulsify and make what you're trying to get. And I know like that 69K with their wing program. I've seen a lot of pictures of it. You look at that board, the right side board being all the way down and back, and look at the surface area that you have it punching a hole through the air when it makes a corner. You've got the left side board forward and the right side board back, and the left side board is cocked up a little bit. So when you're entering the corner, you've got all that air pushing all four tires into the racetrack, and that's a much different look and view and theory than the 57.
Sam, would you say what is fair to say about like crew chiefs of kind of like the Donnie Kreitz, Jimmy Carr generation versus the average crew chief today? Do you think I'm out of line on that, or do you think I'm accurate there?
No, I think those guys, the older guys, that older generation, they're way far beyond any of the newer guys today. And not to say that the newer guys aren't. Like, you got like a guy like Paul Silva, he's probably one of the younger successful crew chiefs. Like, and I would say, like, when we're talking successful, I would say what I consider elite status, right? Nowadays, it's the terminology these guys use, the things are so much different, right? Like I always go back to Rick Ferkel because he's probably the oldest school guy I've ever worked with, and like I learned so much stuff from him. Just like he didn't really care about shocks. He was all about mechanical things on the car, and the stuff that he knew about like right how much right rear weight off the scales and how much right rear weight he would add at these certain points or at these certain tracks and you know going to left rear weight at these certain tracks and these bars at these tracks and like the knowledge that those guys had back then because obviously they had to race with equipment not near like what we have today. These younger guys just have a huge advantage because shocks can control so much of the car now, whereas back then, it wasn't major. So yeah, I mean the guys now like you still got Ricky Warner, you got your Jimmy Cars, you got guys like that, Barry Jackson, the guys that have been around for a long time. Man, these guys even like the 5 car really wasn't that fast this last year, but I still think Barry Jackson's super super smart. I think that he's forgot a lot more than a lot of these younger guys will ever know. Um, but he like those guys are just far beyond everybody, all these other guys. I mean, their preparation of building a race car, everything is just far far advanced from some of the younger guys. But the younger guys, they're building nice equipment and they're having fast race cars. They're just doing it a lot different way. Um, I don't think it's a consistent method. Like if they change the tires tomorrow, I think the older guys would still adapt quicker. The younger guys would get there; it just take more time.
Okay, so another driver that has announced that they're going on the World of Outlaw tour is Garrett Williamson. Uh, I thought this was inevitable. I can't believe the steps this kid's taken in like 3 or 4 years. Justin, what does adding Garrett Williamson to the World of Outlaws do for the Outlaws?
I don't know that it does much for the Outlaws. When you've got that, how deep their roster is, and we talked about the top 7 there. Garrett's not going to go out and win 10 races next year. Um, but do I think he's a guy that could be a star in 3 or 4 or 5 years? Yeah, yeah, maybe. And I think for those guys, it makes a lot of sense now to make this jump. They ran 40 or 50 Outlaw shows in 2024, and sometimes you just got to go do the thing and just see where you stack up. The idea that you need to run before you walk kind of thing. And they've been building that program. I know they didn't quite get as much funding as they had hoped for, but they're going to make a go of it anyway. And I think that'll be good. Do I think they're going to be a top 5 team in the points next year? No, they're going to finish 8th or 9th, and they're going to get their head kicked in some nights. And Williamson's gonna pick up some top 5s, and he's gonna look really good some nights as well. But he's one of these guys that can build for the future, and he spends 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 years now kind of getting himself acclimated to the road, and that team understands what they need to do with the hauler, and what hotels to stay at, and all of those types of things. That's just going to pay off down the road. And I think he's a guy that could have some longevity, especially with the strides we've seen him make here the last couple of years.
Anything to add to that, Dom? What are your thoughts?
I tell you one thing: Chad Seipert is the perfect crew chief for that team. Um, he's a hard worker. He's dedicated to the craft, and he's been around you know quite some time now. I really truly believe that Chatty will be a very good leader for the team. No one's going to work harder than him. No one is going to do more homework in what it's going to take to be successful. And he's a patient guy as well. So I think him and Garrett are going to work great together. I think he's going to be a very helpful, calming person to be on the team. And I just look forward to what they can do. I think you're spot on, Justin, with your assumption of how they're going to run. I think that's going to be right. They're going to have a couple top 5s. They're going to have quite a few top 10s, and they're going to be 11th through 15th for the majority of the season. That's what happens your first time out. Running a national tour, and I don't think that's a knock on them. I just think that for Garrett, this is the next step that he needs to take to become the driver that I think he eventually will become, but it just takes time. It's just like doing your homework. It's going to take a little bit of time out on the road, and he's shown moments of brilliance, and there's no question he can drive a race car. It's just gonna, kind of matter on getting himself good at places that he hasn't been, and unloading quick, and then you got to realize this is a brand new team, so both these guys have to kind of come together and figure out what they need together.
Sam, you were running the ASCS when Garrett was running the ASCS, and he wasn't really even a threat to win a race. And then in a very quick period of time, he went to being an elite 360 driver at Knoxville to one of the top drivers at Knoxville in the 410 class. And this has all happened very quick. What do you think that Garrett's potential is? Where do you think he can kind of top out at?
It's hard to say. Like, when I saw him early on, I didn't think his potential was going to be very high. He stuck with it. This last year or two, he's made some huge gains. The biggest thing I think for any guy like in his position is to have the backing for several years. Like that's like all this stuff usually falls short for guys like him. If Fisher decides to leave that deal and say, hey man, we're going to need X amount of dollars for the next year, and that deal's dried up, then it puts him out on his ass again, So like the biggest thing is longevity for these guys. If you can get a team to commit to you for 3-4 years, because that's what it's going to take. Like, that for any guy of his caliber, it's like I say, there's 40 guys in the country. And if you get any of these 40 guys in the right situations and the right combination behind them and repeat that year after year after year, like look where Gravel's at. He's been doing this a while. Like people don't understand this. And the same thing with Sweet, same thing with all these guys. They've all done it for a while. Yeah, Gravel bounced around, but Gravel, the last 2 or 3 rides landed in good pieces of equipment. It just took him, he's been out there long enough. He's put his time in. It lined up for him. Brad Sweet, how long was he out there? A long time. put his time in. He's got a system. He's, in the same program. Like the moment these guys break that up, after a course of however many years, it's almost like starting back over to some degree. Like I think, like the person, if I was anybody and running the Outlaws and I was scared of somebody about to be fast, would be Buddy Kofoid, because they did that in a year. A year. They did it 1 year. Like, and it's like, it's like Dom says about his brother's team. Well, they got all the tools they need, right? Well, they didn't do that in a year. So, like, if I'm a team and I'm worried about a guy, it's Buddy Kofoid. That's the guy I'm worried about, because after a year of racing, Buddy Kofoid's already got this far. The team's come along this far, and that, like, for a guy like Garrett Williamson, that's what he's got to look for. Like, okay, how much progress can I make this year to keep this team owner interested in going, hey, man, let's do it again next year. And if he could keep that going and say, if Chatty's his guy, keep Chatty there and keep the team going. But that's the key to his success. It's the key to any young guy coming up. I mean, it's where a guy like me has failed. It's where, then you got to start over again. And then maybe you never get the opportunity that you want again. But right now, he's getting the opportunity. He's got to take advantage of it and keep these owners interested for several years.
Okay, we had one other driver team combination happen that happened low key, but I think it's going to affect Sam a lot. Is in the 360 world, Derek Hagar is teaming up with AG Reigns. And for those of you that don't know, AG Reigns is the guy that owned the 3 car when Sammy Swindell was hauling ass in 360s. And if people don't follow the 360 world, they don't know this, but Derek Hagar has probably been one of the fastest guys in the country and probably amongst the top 3 toughest guys Sam runs against consistently. Sam, could you just explain to people like how good Hagar is and AG Reigns as a car owner and how potent this combination could be?
Yeah, I mean, I think Derek's smart in his own right. I think he builds shocks. He's been involved in probably every aspect of his race car. Builds wings. So he's a pretty switched on guy. I think and AG's always had a pretty fast race car even before Sammy Swindell came around. Yeah, I think those two getting together, I don't know the extent of, how far they're willing to travel or what they're willing to do, but, Derek wins just about every race at Riverside, it seems like. When we were there, I felt like the first night we were there, we probably had him covered, but the second night, it got a little slicker, and, that place, he's just a dominant guy at that place. It's unreal. So, and that's not the only track he's good at. I mean, obviously, when he travels around his area, he's a dominant guy. And then kind of pairing him up with AG, there's no telling what their limit will be.
Okay, so that's all I had for the show. But last time we had someone on, it was Tyler Courtney, and I was about to cut it off, and Sam told me to stop what the hell I was doing and ask Tyler Courtney some questions since we had Tyler Courtney there. So since we've got Justin Fiedler here, fellas, what questions do you want to ask Justin Fiedler? Since we've got him kidnapped and he can't go anywhere.
Do you ever wear pants when you do your show?
Never. I'm actually, I don't even have underwear on right now. I'm just sitting here butt ass naked in this chair.
I knew it.
How often, and I've asked you this before, but like, how much badass information are you sitting on right now?
A decent amount. There is a top sprint car team right now, top driver right now that will have a new crew chief next season. And I would imagine Dom probably knows what I'm talking about.
Yeah, Dom calls everyone. Everyone writes you. Dom talks to every single person ever.
Like this information is nowhere. There's no sniff of it. There's no hint of it, but it's coming, and I don't know when it's coming, but it's coming.
Okay, I'm gonna ask you one that is how. This is a question that's probably gonna only interest me and Justin. When I first started following your podcast and looking into our podcast, you had about 25,000 subscribers. We had 0. Some of the higher end guys like Tanner Holmes were at like 75. Uh how many actual sprint car fans do you think are out there?
I mean, it's tough to say. Like you look at my subscriber numbers, and my subscriber numbers are not an accurate representation of my viewership. Like I have 200,000 plus people a month tuning into a daily show across platforms. My assumption would be that at least half of those are sprint car people, right? You're either a sprint car person, you're a late model person. There's very little crossover, between the two sides. That's why when you go to World Finals, when the sprint cars are on track, half the crowd leaves, and then when the late models come out, the other half of the crowd leaves. So what that number looks like, I don't know. You got to think there's probably what around the country, maybe 1,000,000 sprint car fans. I wouldn't shock me if that was a decent number, just kind of with me throwing a wild ass guess out there.
See, the reason I asked that is because early on in our podcast, we were asking ourselves, what's kind of the cap on sprint car racing? And I said the next step is that we have to have like corporate America truly involved. And then we were talking about the difference between us and Supercross and that they have factory backing. Sprint car racing doesn't have that. Do you think we can ever get to the numbers where corporate America can't deny sprint car racing?
It's too fractured. Dirt racing as a whole is too fractured. There's too many divisions. There's too many series. You've seen it right now with sprint car side, right? Like we had this where we had one sprint car series. Now we have two. Um, I think it's a very good thing that a company like Kubota comes in and gets involved in some places. And I think you're going to see that. You're going to see hit or miss things where companies are going to get involved and get out. Will there ever be large scale corporate involvement in dirt racing? No, there won't be. And I think a big stupid part of that is just the fact that when you go to the racetrack, you get dirty. Like there's no clean, easy way to go to a dirt race. Like it's a messy thing and it's fractured. And I don't see there being any sort of network TV deals or Netflix doing things or whatever. Like I think the sport needs to continue investing in itself and continue building out World Racing Group owns Dirt Vision and Flow is making the investments they're making. I think your best hope for the future in a profitable sport is a sport that invests in itself and is worried about itself and does the best it can in that way. I think it's a fool's errand at this point to try to go chase some of those other things. We've seen it's all been tried, right? It's all been tried. And the idea is in a lot of ways, right, that there's no bad ideas, there's just bad timing. And maybe that's true to a point, but like, you know, TV deals have been paid for. We've seen NASCAR connections, we've seen different types of racetracks, we've seen paved tracks and drag strips become dirt tracks. And it's like if that was a model that worked, it would still be being done. So I don't think NASCAR or I don't think dirt racing will ever be as big as NASCAR. I don't think it'll ever be as big as IndyCar. But that doesn't mean that's not a bad thing. Like I think it's okay that it remains the size that it is and just build yourself out, invest in yourself and let everything else kind of take care of itself, I think.
Okay, so when I was at Charlotte, I talked to Garrett Williamson, and Garrett Williamson told me they were going to announce that he was going on the Outlaw Tour in a week, but he asked me to keep that quiet. I know you heard that too. And then obviously they didn't get the funding they needed, and it delayed them this long. What is the best piece of information you've ever gotten that didn't happen?
Ooh.
That was going to happen and just something happened that
That's a good one.
I don't know, like it's tough to say because there are things that you hear that are so outlandish that you like don't put stock in them. I don't know that there's anything that I've been told that was like, "Oh my god, this is happening," and then it just completely falls apart. Like the Tanner Holmes Tarleton thing, I've known about for weeks. The McFadden side of that surprised me. I hadn't heard anything about McFadden to Tarleton, but the Tanner Holmes thing had been going on. I even messaged Tanner about it. He wouldn't tell me anything. I messaged Drew Warner about it. He wouldn't tell me anything, but I was hearing that from other people. Um, I don't know, like, some of the gravel stuff with querying at Husets and them talking to Flo maybe would be the closest thing to that, which I talked about on the show. That I know that there were conversations that went on between querying and Flow and querying and High Limit about, them switching allegiances. How serious querying was about any of that stuff and whether he was just using it for leverage with World Racing Group. I don't know the answer to that part of it, but I know those discussions were had. And I had people asking me in the industry about whether or not gravel was really going high limit or not. But did I ever really believe that was going to happen? I don't know the answer to that. I don't know that I could say that I felt that. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know that there's something that I was like really sure was going to happen that just completely fell apart.
Hmm. You guys got questions for him?
Well, so you know, so what's the roster look like for the Outlaws now? Obviously, you got Gravel, Buddy, Geo, both Macedo, Shot, Shoehart, Hod, Baylog, and Williamson. Is there any others? Oh, Wyndham, I guess.
Yeah, Wyndham
Yeah.
was sides.
If you go to Master Gassers, they got a whole graphic up.
Well, that's and then what's High Limit look like? It can't look that good.
This is what I'm saying. The top 8 outlaws I think are noticeably ahead.
Like it's unreal how much lopsided it is this time.
Yeah, this is what I think people aren't catching on. Like all these people running their mouths about the outlaws. Look at the top 8 versus the top 8.
From what I heard, there's potentially one addition for High Limit. Everything else will just be guys coming back. I know that there are teams that had requested the platinum agreement paperwork that have not been announced and may not be announced. I know Sam's asked. I know Axum has inquired about that. Whether or not those guys sign or not, I don't know. McCandless, I don't know how serious that is. That was something that was floated at points throughout the year. I think the Vermeer car maybe goes one way or the other. I think what's more likely for the Vermeer car is they go pick and choose or maybe do Power Eye. The other thing I've heard is I had heard Craig Kinzer was maybe a backup for the sides car if they didn't find a deal, but I have been told that Craig may be trying to put his own deal back together again, to bring the 11K back out. So I guess we'll see what happens there. And the last I heard, Bill Rose has like no driver for the six. So I know he's talked to a lot of people, but I don't know, what they have and what he doesn't have at this point.
What the hell does High Limit have?
These are the possibilities that are out there, right? Like I mean, it's not, those aren't, there's no revelations in there.
Yeah, like it's like what the hell does High Limit have? I just don't.
So High Limit has obviously Sweetback, Sunshine, assuming Rico, because Rico hasn't said anything officially. Marks, Baston, Peck, Reitzel. I think Reitzel is a decent pickup for them on that side because
Oh, for sure.
that Ridge car will be, a
He
contender
will win
now.
races. He will win
Yeah.
races.
Tanner Thorson, Casey Kane. I think the
PPM.
PPM is no, he's in the Forbert car running Knoxville, so he's
So
out.
he's not going to do any of that. That's okay. I should have remembered that.
Yeah. Who else? Zeb doesn't have a ride as far as I know. Jacob Allen going pick and choose.
Well, Zeb's
Um,
got to find something pretty soon, huh?
yeah, I talked to him a couple of weeks ago and he kind of made it seem like there wasn't much out there for him right now and that he was, kind of going to wait and see how things played out. And then the only other question is the CJB car. Like, does Brenham Crouch? Do they go high limit? Do they go outlaws? Do they do something in between? I think my assumption at this point, some of the things I've heard is that they will probably be back with high limit, but I don't know that for sure.
Okay, so normally we end these podcasts with a talking shit segment, and I've warned Justin, but I don't know if he's ready. Justin, do you have a topic you want to talk shit about? What just pisses you off about sprint car racing?
Um, Something that pisses me off about sprint car racing. I'm gonna catch hell for this because everybody think
Perfect.
everybody thinks I'm a World Racer Group and a World of Outlaws homer. So if I say anything critical about high limit, it's gonna come down on me, but I don't care. Brent Marks makes his announcement that he's going high limit racing, and it was multiple days before the series said anything about it. We've got to be better about that. Like, we need to have coordination between the team and the series. And I understand a lot of high limit people are in Australia and things get lost. This has happened a lot. And I've complained about this on the late model side, where we're finding out about late model teams' plans for the next season because they're looking for crew guys. Like, if we want to be taken more seriously, we have to take ourselves more seriously. There has to be more coordination about these types of announcements. And like, announcing things on Christmas Eve and Christmas Day just blow. Like, what are we, news dumping here so nobody sees this shit? Like, you cannot be announcing things on Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. Like, it's insane to me that there was so much news that happened over the last 7 days. Like, I don't understand it. This is PR 101 bullshit that we have got to be better about, and it drives me insane.
Well, I wonder, just off the top of my head, like when I started with Sam, I would write Sam's press releases. And I would have like a big long email list, and I'd be sending that thing out. Well, Sam would only let me send them out when he had good runs, but I'd have a big email
And with
list.
Daryl helping on the car, that wasn't very often.
Eat a dick.
It like, and you know, for the most part, the here's how my driver ran over the last week press releases, and this is going to be another hot take, but those are worthless. No one's reading those. Like, I'm sorry, but no one's reading those. But like, when we're making a big announcement, like a series announcement is a big announcement. There needs to be coordination. There needs to be, okay, at 11 a.m. the series is going live with this. The team is going live for this. And if you're going to have Jeremy Elliott or Flo or Speed Sport or somebody else involved, you bring everybody in together and say, at this time, here's when we're going. So you have this nice big effect across as many channels as possible. People are all over the place right now. Like, some people are on Facebook, some people are on Twitter, some people are on TikTok, YouTube, wherever. And I don't know if I have this conversation with Daryl or not, but like, the one thing I've learned about through all of this is that you don't get people to move platforms. Like, I'm on so many different places because that's where the people are. Like, I'm not getting my Facebook people to go to YouTube. So you've got to hit all of those places in a coordinated way. And it's like, if you're not doing that, then your message is not getting out. I have 200,000 people a month who tune into my show, and there are people that don't know stories are going on. Like, 3 or 4 days later, they're like, "Oh, I didn't know that happened." It's like, we've been talking about this for a week. How do you not know that happened? Like, there has to be that coordination, and a single press release on your Twitter account or a single social media post is not getting that done.
That was beautiful. You understood the
Agreed.
assignment. Now I got a question you're not ready for.
Perfect.
What are we doing wrong on our podcast? What's like the one thing what's the one thing you see us screwing up on that we need to clean up?
It's definitely our fucking editor.
Yeah, I mean, like, Daryl's lighting is just heinous. I don't know what he's got going on over there. Is that a flashlight on his head? I don't know what that is. No, like, the thing about podcasting, right, is there's no like set, like, I can't hand you a book and say, do these things and you will be successful, right? It's different for everybody. And what I will say is, if you guys want to be successful with this, I love what you guys have going on. There's so much good shit that comes out of this podcast, but you have to keep doing it. And like, you just like, podcasting is a friggin' grind. And that is the one thing people do not want to believe about this space, is that it is an absolute grind. I've been doing this every single day for 5 years. I've done over 1,200 daily shows at this point. And like, people only see right now that I have almost 40,000 subscribers and I've done nearly 20 million show plays, and I have a corporate sponsor and all of this stuff. But it's taken me 5 days of doing this, or 5 years of doing this 5 days a week. And then before that, I did Open Red for 4 years, and we did another 200 episodes. It's like, you just have to grind away. You have to try some shit. You have to iterate and just see what works. And like, I'm not going to come in here and crap on anything you guys have going on, because I love what you're doing and I hope you keep doing it.
Like, say your last, like one of your shows, like when you're doing them, how long does it take you to prepare and put that out? Like, say, your deal with Dom obviously has like 50 minutes, but like, how long do you prepare, and then how much time do you have in like the final production of that?
Okay, so on a normal time, like I'm like Mr. Mom right now. My wife is a high school English teacher, so she's gone early in the morning. She doesn't come back till late. This is what I do all day. I spend my mornings doing Dirtrackr. I spend my afternoons with grad school stuff. So I drop my son off at 8. I come back, I get an energy drink and I sit down at my desk and I work until the show is out. Sometimes that's 3 or 4 hours. Sometimes it might be 5 or 6 hours. But I usually try to have the show out by noon or 1 o'clock. So that means I've put 4 hours, say, of work into the show. And that's watching races, working through stats. I write a full show script every single day. I'm reading from a teleprompter when I do my shows. I do zero editing of the daily show. It's recorded in one shot, immediately posted. So like the actual production of the show doesn't exist. And even like the stuff that I did with Dom this last week, I recorded, I put an open and a close on a couple graphics and sent it. And then I chopped those interviews up and did clips as well. So I'd have extra content for the week. But the interview stuff, I don't love the interview stuff generally. And not because I don't want to talk to people or not because it doesn't have impact. Like I love talking to Dom. I love talking to Jonathan Joyner last week and Jeremy, but like it's too much of a pain in the ass. Like I don't want to line up. I don't want you to ghost me. And I've been through all of that before. I have literally interviewed every single World of Outlaws champion that's been alive. I've talked to everybody there is to talk to in the sport. And interview shows, it's just too big of a pain in the ass. But in terms of a daily show, 4 hours probably is about the average. And all of that is research and script writing. The production stuff, the graphics, all of those things takes very little time. To me, what's more important is the content and what it is that I'm actually saying.
Dom, you looked like you were about to ask him a question when Sam asked one. Did you have one for him?
Yeah. What I was going to ask is, um, something that I notice about your stuff is like you have the interviews from time to time, but you focus on these short little 8 to really 7 to 10 minute videos. Um, have you like obviously to get to that point? Have you noticed that hey, your viewership falls off at a point, or do you think that hey, this is my niche that I'm good at and I'm comfortable in, and I'm going to stick with this? Or how did you fall upon that like little window, or is that all the information that's out when you're doing a daily show?
Well, I think the big key to understand here is on YouTube, you get the second ad break at 8 minutes. So if I do a 7 minute, 58-second video, I'm not getting that middle ad break. So that's less revenue that I'm making off that video. And so, like, if you notice over time, I've never been less than 7 minutes, but like, I've probably never been more than 17 or 18 minutes. But I want quick hits. I want short. I want to condense it all. I don't want to lose your attention. And like, on an average 8 minute video, people are probably watching for 5 minutes and 45 seconds. And I understand that, I'm going to spread out and I'm going to talk about sprint cars, late models, whatever. Certain people are not going to be interested in some of those other topics and they're going to tune me out and then maybe they jump to the next section. So it's like I understand that that's going to be the case. Um but for me, just the way I've kind of worked it over time is that 8 minutes just works really well. I can put a ton of information into that. And you have to remember, like, I'm monologuing. Like, it's just me talking to me effectively. Like, I don't have somebody to play off of. And it's like one of the things when I go back and listen to the old episodes of Open Red, it's like me and Ross played off of each other really well. Like that, there's no way to replicate that. And it's taken me time to figure out, it's taken me 5 years to get to this point I'm at. And I would even say that what I'm doing is amazing. Like it's okay, it works. But yeah, could I be better? Absolutely, I could be better, and I try to be better all the time. But I think with what it is that I do, and how short people's attention spans are these days, I think that 8 minute thing is the right way to do it.
So when you get the information that you get, when do you when do you determine the right time to say let that cat out of the bag? Like, do you talk to people and go, hey, and they give you this information? Do you just upon your own will say, okay, I'm letting this shit out today, or you wait till they say, hey, go ahead?
I don't wait till people like give me permission to talk about things. And in most cases, like the information I'm getting is not coming from that person or team or anything like that anyway.
Right.
But it's like it has to be something that I can probably at least somewhat verify. Like I said, I've been sent some just super outlandish. It's just not true, and I knew it wasn't true the moment it got sent to me. Um, but yeah, like I mean, if I can get something and it seems verifiable, and I can get some people to say, okay, yeah, this is actually what's happening. then yeah, like I'm gonna probably run with it. And the sport as a whole does just a generally job of breaking news anyway. So it's like I guess if I piss people off along the way, the thing that I have said all along is I pay for Flow, I pay for Dirt Vision. I went to the High Limit and Lucas weekend at Golden Isles this year. I paid for my own pit pass. Like I don't need anything from the sport. Like I'm not asking for anything. I don't need access. I don't need free shit. And I'm going to keep it that way because I want to talk about things the way I want to talk about them. And people assume that because I have this Kubota sponsor and they're also with Flow and High Limit that they have say. Like Kubota does, there's nothing in my contract that says that they have any sort of say of my editorial, and neither does any other advertiser. And when I've talked to advertisers and people that have spent money with me, I will say up front, like, this isn't buying you anything with me. Understand that now. And so, like, I'm going to continue saying what I want to say, how I want to say it. And it's like, if they don't like it, then like, don't watch, don't listen. Like, there's no one holding a gun to your head saying you have to tune into my show every day.
See, Daryl, that's your problem.
Yeah, you suck, Daryl. Get a job.
Well, I think that's everything. I told Justin we'd be an hour and 15 minutes to an hour and 30, and we're at an hour and 49, so I was pretty accurate there. Thanks a lot for doing this, guys. Justin, thanks for doing this. You're an excellent fill-in for the fill-in, and talk to you later, fellas.
Thanks, guys.
See you, buddy.